All right, man, peace. You know, brothers, I did a video about Markelle Fultz many months ago in which I stated that it was very unfortunate that it was extremely obvious to me that there were members of the Philadelphia 76ers front office, then, of course, under the stewardship of Brian Colangelo, that were clearly not being as supportive of Markelle Fultz as they needed to be, because it was apparent to me, even at that time, that he was going through some type of psychological issue. And it's very obvious that that psychological issue has become exacerbated because he is failing in his NBA career. We can state that with a certain level of certainty, that as of right now, he's failing in his NBA career. And it's not really a skill issue. It's a brain issue. And that's going to make a lot of other teams shy away from him because they may not want to have to deal with a reclamation project. So it's going to be very interesting to see where Markelle Fultz's career goes from here. I hope for the best for the brother. I'm not quite sure if Philadelphia is going to be willing to stick with him, especially after acquiring Jimmy Butler. I'm not quite sure where he'll fit in. They pretty much are just going to have to eat this in regards to drafting him #1 overall. And we'll see what happens. Of course, they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
This is SportsCenter right now. I'm Antonieta Collins. When the Sixers host the Pelicans tonight, Markelle Fultz will not be suited up. His agent, Raymond Brothers, saying the 20-year-old will not play in games or practices until a shoulder specialist evaluates him. All this coming as a surprise to head coach Brett Brown.
And you know what? From what one brother told me in the comments, supposedly Markelle Fultz hurt his shoulder in a motorcycle accident. I had never heard that until I read that from a certain brother in the comments. If one of you other brothers have heard the same story, you can verify it. I know oftentimes these athletes, they get hurt doing things that they're not supposed to do, and they keep it under wraps. And sometimes even their organization will keep it under wraps so that the media does not grab a hold of it and embarrass that athlete even further. But once again, supposedly somebody's told me in the comments that Markelle Fultz hurt his shoulder on a motorcycle. And I guess that whatever the extent was of the structural damage on his shoulder, it affected him psychologically, and it's taken him longer to recover psychologically than it has physically. That's what I'm guesstimating. That's what I'm asserting right now. I'm not quite sure how true that is because he and his team are claiming that they still have structural issues. I'm not quite sure how true that is because Elton Brand has come out and stated that they found nothing wrong with his shoulder.
Kind of the first, real sort of red flag type news. I mean, I played him, 20-something minutes 4 days ago, and I thought he played okay. In fact, I thought he did well. I think he's having a good year. And so this news about his shoulder, it did catch me off guard. But, if it's that real, that he needs to go seek, further sort of consultation, and we support him. It's really, in my eyes, it's not complicated. Like, if that's what it is, then we'll support him.
I know Monday's the consultation. I asked why Monday. He said that's the best time they could get an appointment. So I'm like, I thought they might move it up for him, but I guess not.
For more, let's get you back to First Take.
Sue, Markelle Fultz to see a shoulder specialist. Stephen A., what's your reaction to the whole Fultz situation?
Let me say this very quickly before Stephen A. Smith speaks about this. This is when the loyalty of an organization, the respect and regard that they have for a player gets tested. Because it'll be very, very easy for them to cut bait on Markelle Fultz, not just as an athlete, but as a person, and say this guy's a nut job. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He's panicking. He sees that he's about to fail in his career, and now he's looking for excuses. It's very easy for them to do that. And oftentimes in life, not just when an organization or corporation, but an individual person sees that they can't get anything out of you, that's when you find out who they really are as a person.
I'm incredibly relieved. He needs help. And his shoulder is one thing. Psychologically, he also needs help. He needs all the support that he can get. He's relatively fragile in that regard, and according to some people, I don't know him, this is what they say.
Right, but Steve, it's relatively clear that he is fragile psychologically.
They say, and you watch him on the court, there is such...
You mean like mental toughness?
Well, I just think...
No, Molly Karam, it's obvious what he's talking about. He's not talking about mental toughness. He's talking about right now, he's been traumatized. similar to somebody who may have been involved in an incident where they saw a loved one get killed, or they may have been in war and seen one of their, fellow combatants get shot down, or maybe they may have had something traumatic happen to them. That's what he's dealing with right now. Something that, to be quite frank with you, has clearly fragmented his mind.
Think that
he's seeing a shoulder specialist. He needs to see a head specialist.
He needs both.
Yeah,
He needs
but
both.
I'm
He needs
asking
both.
you
He
that.
needs
Okay.
both. He needs both. Because his confidence is shattered for a lot of different reasons, some of which don't have anything to do with basketball. Having said all of that,
Well, Stephen A. Smith, what do they have to do with? Because clearly you know something.
people need to understand this. There's not just a considerable drop-off from J.J. Redick to him. There's a considerable drop-off from T.J. McConnell to him. T.J. McConnell is a nice
TJ's a good player.
He's a damn good player and a nice reserve, but it's not supposed to be a considerable drop-off from T.J. McConnell to the #1 overall pick. That's not...
Right, but Stephen A. Smith, I mean, come on. Don't you think you're exaggerating just a little bit? There's a sizable drop-off from T.J. McConnell to him. Stop.
That's not supposed to happen, but it has happened. And so as a result, why would that happen? Markelle Fultz can score. He can play in terms of, he can put the ball in the hole. He can't shoot yet because of the shoulder. But his lack...
Right, but well, we can't say that he can't shoot because of the shoulder, because as of right now, according to the Philadelphia 76ers, they don't see anything structurally wrong with his shoulder. And if you're going to get on TV and state that he has a psychological issue, then how could we say that his shooting problems come from his shoulder as opposed to his brain? It seems that Markelle is suffering from the quote-unquote yips, which I'm sure that many of you brothers have heard. Many of these pundits on television utilize that term. I remember as a kid in high school watching the second baseman of the New York Yankees, Chuck Knobloch, not be able to make a throw from second base to first base. And when I say from second base to first base, I'm not talking about standing on the bag. I'm talking about being 10 feet away. He could not throw the baseball from 10 feet away from the first baseman to the first baseman.
lack of understanding for the game, the just nuances of the game, the feel for the game, etc. That's not a strength of his, which has been a problem for Brett Brown in the past. Markelle Fultz didn't play this year because Markelle Fultz deserved it. Markelle Fultz played this year because he's the former #1 overall pick that the Philadelphia 76ers have to justify taking him in that slot for.
Right, but Stephen A. Smith, we could say that about any #1 overall draft pick. What number of overall draft pick gets playing time because they deserve it? No, you're getting playing time because they want to see what they drafted. They want to see what they invested in.
They put him on there because we all looked at Brett Brown and said, last year when Markelle Fultz putting the ball in the hole, how do you not play this man? You got to find a way to validate Brian Colangelo giving up a pick and moving up to #1 overall. Not that it would work.
He's a bad idea, GM.
I mean, not that it would work, but you got to at least...
Right, but I mean, Max Kellerman, we already know you want to bang on Brian Colangelo because you're a huge Hinkie fan. If it was up to Hinkie, they'd still be tanking up to now.
At least try to show what this kid is made of. But there is a lack of understanding when it comes to having a feel for the game of basketball on the NBA level for Markelle Fultz. He can put the ball in the hole, but he can't shoot. And psychologically, he has been severely compromised because of some demons that have nothing to do with basketball, and it's affected his game. So I'm glad that he's getting help, but I hope it's not just the shoulder. I hope it's up here as well.
It's in his...
It appears as if Stephen A. Smith may be alluding to the story, or at least the issue that the commenter on my channel was referring to, that being the quote-unquote motorcycle accident, which, once again, I had heard nothing about, and it seems to be something that they want to keep under lock and key, as we see Stephen A. Smith refuses to tell exactly what it is that is plaguing Mr. Markelle Fultz.
It's in his head, obviously. It's obviously in his head. His confidence is shattered, and that doesn't mean, well, he's soft, get rid of him. We saw LeBron James be overwhelmed by the fourth quarter when Miami played Dallas in the finals. Fourth quarters. He was overwhelmed psychologically, emotionally. LeBron James wound up being a great clutch player. But it didn't look like that. It looked like, the Jordan ship had sailed back then, right? Zach Greinke in Major League Baseball came up as one of the most highly touted pitchers at his age in a generation and had an anxiety disorder. Remember? And he couldn't pitch. And he had to go get help.
A lot of people deal with mental
Imagine, you know
illness.
how hard it is to throw. You ever throw out a first pitch at a baseball game when people are looking at you and it'd be embarrassing to mess up? What if you do that for a living and you're playing in front of tens of thousands every night and hundreds of thousands on television and you have anxiety disorder? Zach Greinke wound up being a great major league pitcher who had excellent outings in the postseason under enormous pressure in a huge market like Los Angeles. It's not the end of the road for Markelle Fultz because he's going through some psychological stuff right now. And let me tell you when I watch his shot, I think that shot's okay. That's a fixable shot. I asked Coach Mackey about it. Coach Mackey, my daughter's skills development.
I agree with Max Kellerman in regards to his statement right there. I don't particularly see anything that atrocious about Markelle Fultz's shooting form. It's just very obvious that he has very low confidence, number one. And number two, he probably was not that proficient a jump shooter to begin with. And then when you add on the possible structural damage, or at least the afterthought of the structural damage on his shoulder, and the fear and the anxiety that he may have, and whether or not he's going to be able to live up to the promise of being a number one overall draft pick. When you mix all those things together in a cocktail, you may have what you have here, which is a potential number one overall bust.
Go ahead. And steady buckets. Shout out Coach Mackey. I said, Coach, Markelle Fultz's shot looks technically okay to me. Like, he's not missing left and right so much, long and short more, right? Which is okay. But technically it looks okay. And Coach Mackey said he's not shooting at the apex of his jump. His legs and arms aren't working together. But
well, you know what? That's been an issue that I've seen from many players in the NBA who have an inconsistent jump shot. Russell Westbrook is definitely one of them. For a very long time, for those of you brothers who paid attention to Russell Westbrook when he shoots his jump shot, he used to shoot it not at the apex of his jump, but on the way down. He would jump up and then he would shoot it on the way down. He also does not follow through on his jump shot. I mean, to be honest with you, technically speaking, his jump shot is atrocious, Russell Westbrook. Like, he would need to totally trash his entire jump shot, but he's too late in his career for that. I mean, the man's, if he's not 30, he's damn near 30. So he might as well just finish out his career. He has a good cult of personality anyway. He got a bunch of guys who'll make a bunch of excuses for his ass. But he's had that problem as well.
by the way, I mentioned Ben Simmons looks the same thing to me. He said, that's right. Ben Simmons has the same problem. Those kind of problems in terms of his shot are technical and be fixed. Like Lonzo Ball's shot looks stranger and needs more work to make it consistent to me in the long run than Markelle Fultz. So what we see from Fultz is something that with a minor technical adjustment physically. And
these are the type of problems that you see from these guys who either don't go to college or come out after 1 year. They're not getting the proper training. They're not getting the proper coaching.
And a major one, psychologically, he can still be an excellent NBA player.
You're talking about all of that, but there's so many serious questions about him psychologically, and some people, close to the organization have attributed it to family pressure as well. So you got the psychological deal.
I'm not surprised about that. So many of these brothers, they have these leeches and these hangers-on who are trying to pressure them to be a success in the NBA, and then if he fails, many of the people in his family are going to reject him or try to castigate him as a loser or what have you. But it's very, very, very unfortunate. That's why it's so important that you have your own life and not try to live through your child or through your sibling or what have you. So that if they can help you, that's all it is. It's help. It's not sustenance. You're not supposed to be living off of the next person. That's why I get on these dudes when they start talking about what Floyd Mayweather or what Michael Jordan or what has so-and-so done for the black community. Like, what type of man says something like that? You're a grown fucking man and you have the nerve to type clickety-clack about what another man should have done for you? What you're really saying is, how come these other men have not raised my kids for me? You sound pathetic. What type of grown man says some shit like that? But, just getting back to the point, a person like Markelle Fultz, 19 years old, who knows? He might have all type of family members trying to pull out his money because they see an NBA player and all of a sudden they think he's Bill Gates. You have a lot of people like that, especially in the so-called black community, unfortunately, who are trying to treat him like an ATM, most likely. And the dude is making how much? Who knows how much he's making? Let's say if he's making $2 million a year. It's really only $1 million a year after taxes. Then he has to pay the agent, he has to live his life and all these other things, and he's going to have a very short shelf life in the NBA. So, one of the main things that he has to learn, and what people in general have to learn in life, is how to use the word no. Very important.
Demons. You got the pressure from the family. You got the pressure of being the #1 overall pick, but got a nasty shoulder injury that has completely compromised your shot. Meanwhile, you also have the pressure mounting because people are looking for you to validate your existence because Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons are the cornerstones of the franchise. You now acquire Jimmy Butler. And oh, by the way, Jason Tatum is in the league. Donovan Mitchell's in the league.
That's what's really making him look bad, is that Jason Tatum is the player that they were supposed to draft, and now he's doing relatively well with the Boston Celtics, even though he's a bit overrated in my view also.
Markelle is in the league. De'Aaron Fox is coming on strong in Sacramento.
He is coming on strong, but his shooting proficiency is not particularly good.
You got Dennis Smith Jr. in Dallas.
Not doing so bad this year, Sacramento.
Not at all. So they're looking at this guy and they're saying, what is up? The Philadelphia 76ers, let's put it in this right place. If Markelle Fultz was a shred of what he was supposed to be, you don't make that deal for Jimmy Butler because you don't need to. Not for Jimmy Butler.
Not quite, Stephen A. Smith. If Markelle Fultz was a shred of what he was supposed to be, you still trade for Jimmy Butler, but at least you feel comfortable giving Markelle Fultz a lot of playing time. Right now, Markelle Fultz is going to be pushed to the end of the bench. That's what that means.
I agree with everything you're saying.
You needed Jimmy Butler because of what he is.
I agree with everything you're saying. It's going to be a major blunder because you traded a draft pick to not take Jason Tatum and take Fultz instead, which is crazy in retrospect. But I want to say this, just in general, about Markelle Fultz and these athletes who we expect to not only be 1 in a million athletes, but 1 in a million people. The pressures that they are facing are enormous. And
Absolutely. That's why the family atmosphere is so important. I have no idea what his family situation is, but it really is. It's incumbent on parents to understand that their children are human beings. They're not ATMs. Because all that's going to do is that's going to lead to a great amount of antipathy down the line.
The fact that when someone like Markelle Fultz seems to start to crack, that's the exception, is really says a lot about how well most of these young athletes handle everything. Yeah. And it doesn't mean a death knell for his career at all. When you just think back, everyone, to more mature adults, to when you were 20 years old. Imagine everything you're going through at that moment in your life being seen by everybody in the world. How would you have handled it? I don't think the script has been written for Markelle Fultz yet.
That's fair, and I hope you're right. But in all fairness, it may not be just about what others are. It might be about the fact that he really is a kid at heart and wasn't ready for this.
Right, but you know what, Steve? Most of these guys are not ready. I've said this in the past. In my view, they should not allow these young men into the NBA until they're at least 21 years old. Just my view of it. A lot of brothers get upset with that. They say, well, they should have the ability to come into the NBA whenever they feel like they're ready and declare for the draft, blah, blah, blah. No. You have to protect them from themselves. That's what you have to do. Because 3 years of college or wherever they go will give their bodies a chance to mature, their minds a chance to mature, and their understanding of their potential vocation a chance to mature. It's what's best for them, and it's what's best for everyone in the NBA. It'll also give an additional 3 years to veterans in the league who can still play. 32-year-old, 33-year-old role players will still get an opportunity to assist the team. That's why oftentimes the quality gets compromised, because the NBA now is either superstar players or young dudes. You know, there are very few real role players in the NBA anymore, because all these guys are coming into the league at 19, 20 years old, mostly 19 years old, because they're one and dones. And we don't really need to see that, because the game is not good enough when you have a player who's only been in college for 1 year. Look at all the players who came directly into the NBA from high school or having played just 1 year in college. How many of them were impactful their very first season in the NBA, other than LeBron James and a couple of other guys? Kevin Garnett was not good his first year out of high school. Kobe Bryant was not good his first year out of high school. And those were wonderkins. They would have done well to have spent 2 years in college. They would have been better NBA players. Kobe Bryant would have been a much better NBA player. People look at his stats and say, oh, wow, Kobe this, Kobe that. If Kobe had went to college and actually learned how to play in a team concept, you know how good he would have been in the NBA? Like how great he would have been. And I'm talking as an objective observer, not a fan. A fan says, what are you talking about? Kobe's one of the top 3 guys I ever played, blah, blah, blah. I'm talking about a player who would have known how to get better shots. He may have shot 48, 49% for his career instead of 44%. He may not have fell out with coaches and teammates as much because he would have been more comfortable in a team setting. Because in high school basketball, all that shit is a vanity piece. Tracy McGrady and Kevin Garnett and Kobe Bryant, I mean, the entire offense and defense was predicated around making sure that they got all the shine. And they carried that mentality into the NBA, and it hampered them for the first year or so that they were in the league.
Right, and that maybe could hurt him in the long run. It doesn't mean he'll never be
But
ready.
it also goes to show you that athletes are human and not everyone can just compartmentalize. It spills over what you're dealing with at home for your performance. Other people handle it differently. Look at Kobe when he went through all his stuff, right? He was an assassin on the court when he was dealing with all that, but not everybody's...
Oh, bullshit. When Kobe Bryant was dealing with the situation in Colorado, he was having a terrible season. He was not good in the 03-04 season. He was not good in the 04-05 season. He just was not. That's why he bounced back in the 05-06 season to have those huge stat seasons in 05-06 and 06-07. But when he was going through that situation in Colorado with the white girl that supposedly he raped, in 03-04 he was not good. That one season with Karl Malone and Gary Payton, and he was not good the next year, and eventually he got hurt. So that's more revisionist history and bullshit media narrative to feed the flames of these silly-ass fanboys.
But he's Kobe Bryant. Sure. All right. Okay.
But anyway, that's basically it on that. We'll see how things turn out for Mr. Markelle Fultz. So peace.